and welcome back to my Breaking Down series. Today we're going to be covering the last song from my Summer Days EP called With You. So like always, we're going to be breaking down the song and taking pauses here and there just so that I can give you some ideas and how my thought process worked in writing this song. So without further ado, here's With You. So initially there was supposed to be another song in which I still have it on my computer. That one was supposed to be the last song on the Summer Days EP. Had I gone with You first, I would have probably had this EP out, maybe January instead of it being in the summertime. I do have the instrumentation done for that demo, and I promised myself I would go back to that song once I was done pushing out the Summer Days EP and the Summer Nights EP. I think it'll be something really cool whenever it does come out, because I do have plans on doing that and some other stuff. It just depends on time, really. So without further ado, here's With You. This song initially started with that guitar lick that is in the beginning. I, at the time, was focused on really improving my guitar skills, and so I was looking a little bit into like the country side of music, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I will admit, like, country artists, they are like really, really good. I just really wanted to incorporate that in my skill set. Once I started fiddling around, I kind of came up with this riff, and I thought, what in the world am I going to use this with? It doesn't make any sense. And it made even less sense adding it into this like indie pop rock music that I make, whatever you want to call it. So it's just kind of weird to incorporate this like country inspired guitar lick, but hey, it fits. I made it fit. I think it sounds cool, so I just kind of went with it. From there, I started building out the song. Then I start to remove a lot of those simplifications and then make it more detailed. So as you can tell with this song, I use guitars here as texture. For the most part, a lot of this is being driven again by bass and by synths. So that's the idea I wanted to run with. And like I said about writing it simple, in the beginning, I think the chord progression is G and then C and then D, which is, 3-chord, which is like the rule I wrote for myself. But then if you listen to the bass, I'm adding in all these extra notes that revolve around those specific chords. So it just sounds like it's busier. And then I'm using keys and marimbas to just add more like flavor and pizzazz. I really want to get people hooked in the beginning of the song.
Say what you will, just know I may not be coming back. Oh, but the thrill, it's been done before, it doesn't track. Too many times we missed our way, and I'm longing for much better days. Every night's a different game, chips pushed all in with no end to play. Are you for real? I'm just tired of the same routine. So what big deal? Time to move on to other things. You and me were just playing an old trend. Can't you see the path dividing at the end?
So on the, first and second verse, technically, it's the same thing. Your verses will stay the same for the most part in regards of chord progressions, but dynamic-wise, that's what really shifts in between section to section. That way you kind of like can tell what's verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, and etc. So on the first verse, I decided to keep the drums kind of chill, just keep it like a little bit busy, but keep it like quiet busy, And then I have the bass like just really grooving with like just like a bunch of notes and just kind of make it feel, like a little tropical groovy, especially with the chord progression that I'm playing. And if you notice, the guitar is not on the first verse, and that's intentional because dynamics. I want the guitar to come in on the second verse, that way it gives it an elevated feel. Normally after your first verse, you'll go into a pre-chorus and chorus, which is very standard, but in this point, I wanted to kind of break that up and then try something different, in which all I really did is just add a little musical break. But the way I did it is really interesting, I think. Of course, when the music break comes in, I'm playing 2 chords. I'm playing the C chord, but it's like a jazzy C chord. It's not like a natural bar chord. On the bass note of the guitar chord that I'm strumming, I'm not playing the C, I'm actually playing an A. So it comes out to like this weird A minor chord. And then from there, I will shift over to a D major jazzy chord. It's not a natural bar chord. It's like this another strange chord that I threw in, but it sounds more it sounds happier. It's more of a major feel. By adding in those two chords, it gives the music a little break, and then you just jump into the second verse. Then that's when I bring in the guitars and add in like a little bit of like a cool strumming pattern, again to bring up the energy, and then I add in marimbas, I believe. So I use marimbas in the second verse on top of the guitar strumming pattern. The marimbas are at a higher octave, that way it gives it an extra layer of feeling and sound. And now initially that marimba, I guess solo, that was initially supposed to be a guitar lead, but it sounded like a little too harsh. So I decided to throw it into the marimbas and see how that sounded. And it sounds easier on the ears, that's for sure, especially at that high pitch. So I decided to keep it at that.
Too many times we say goodnight, but not enough to say goodbye.
So then we jump into the pre-chorus, which is just a very simple 2 chords going back and forth just to create this anticipation of jumping into the chorus. It's a nice little build-up, and I'm just playing chords C and D, and they're, major chords, so it feels happier, it feels more energetic, and with every time I go back and forth in between the C and D chord, it builds up more hype from there.
If you only knew the truth, I want to be with you. Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you.
So from here, we jump into the chorus. I decided early on that I wanted to have actually 2 choruses and one like chorus / outro. I really wanted to have my choruses to stand out on its own. So with this chorus, I decided to bring everything down and just have a nice synth bass going in the background, and then eventually add drums on the second half of the chorus. That way you feel a build up. Then it would kick off back into the intro, or at this point it would be called a music break. And then when it comes to the lyrics of this chorus, it's incredibly simple, like ridiculously simple. And I didn't mean for it to be like that. I initially wanted to have more lyrics in this part, but it didn't feel right. So I kind of just persuaded myself in thinking, hey, maybe only having these lyric lines is enough. And while it sounds incredibly simple, maybe that's just what the song calls for. I don't think you should force something if it's not meant to be when it comes to songwriting, because if you force it, people will most definitely know. When I was adding the harmony part, I didn't intend for it to sound, to me, it sounds very country-ish, especially like when you just hear the lyrics, it just feels like a country harmony, which doesn't make any sense because harmonies are harmonies regardless of genre. But it sounds like it would belong in a country song, and maybe if I made like a country version, it would sound perfect with this setup. Like if you literally just copy and paste this into a country version of the song, it would more than likely work. But yeah, I just decided to add in that harmony. It sounds really cool, and it just really complements the synth and the drum. So I was really, really happy with that.
Just too damn real. Oh, please, babe, keep dreaming. Can't say how I feel. Maybe that's why I'm leaving. Adios and bon voyage. No time left for a game, one shot. Time to go our separate ways. Lessons learned can be such a shame.
On the second verse, I decided to not add in that music break from verse 1 to verse 2. It's a simplified version. And then on top of that, I did modify it a little bit by adding in synth pad in the background so you can hear it a little bit, but the intention is just to like be the base or like the foundation of the third verse. So I didn't want it to stand out too much, but also just for the sake of the third verse being a little bit different, I just threw that in there. I do want to talk about the lyrics. This song is just basically communication between 2 people, and how communication isn't properly established. After, X amount of time, you tend to get tired of that. You could tell in the verses that there's a lot of back and forth going on. There's certain parts that are harmonized that are intended to be person A, and then there's my vocals just being regular that's intended to be person B. It's a communication scenario where you're just kind of going back and forth.
Too many times we say goodnight, but not enough to say goodbye. Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you. Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you.
So then we jump into the pre-chorus, which is the same as the other pre-chorus. And then we jump into the second chorus, in which it's definitely super energetic, super in your face. I wouldn't say it's like aggressive, but it's definitely like a clearly a lot bigger, more energetic. The bass is just like really, really grooving on the notes. Did take me many tries to get that chorus down, just because, or actually even the whole song really took me many tries. You have keys and synths and marimbas to fill in the background and hold the foundation of the song. And that's why you don't really hear another guitar. You only hear one guitar, and that one guitar is playing a little lick. The second chorus that I created, I think, is really fun, and it makes it easier for me to sing whenever I'm performing this live. I know that was a very, very quick thing. I tried everything in my power to just come up with some sort of transition from the second chorus into the instrumental, and for the life of me, I couldn't find anything that would fit. The only thing I could really piece together is this walk down on the bass and a nice little drum fill that goes into the instrumental. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I don't think people will hyper focus on that part, which is fine, because at the end of the day, I probably heard this song hundreds of times as a demo and to mix and to master. So I'm the only one that probably really notices that. I mean, there might be other musicians that will pick up on that and be like, it kind of feels like it doesn't belong. And that's why I'm saying it doesn't really belong, I feel. But if you don't really catch it, then kudos to me for, keeping it in at that point. So this instrumental really is just an extended version of the intro of the song. The main difference is I up the synth. That way it feels more energetic, and you can definitely feel that foundation being boosted a little bit. More so, I added horns because I figured, what makes a song stand out from the other songs I have? And I have yet to add in horns. So I decided to add in horns, and I think it really, really complements the instrumental part.
Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you. Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you.
So here is technically the third chorus, but it can also be called a build-up, because in the beginning it's calm. It's just a ukulele and horns, in which those are the two new instruments that I decided to add into this music project. I was a really big fan of the ukulele, especially because my wife bought me it. I was just like, how can I use this in a song? Like, kind of doesn't make sense because it's a ukulele. So I just made it fit somehow, and it sounds so different than the second chorus. It just gives it a nice feel that's not just an acoustic guitar or some sort of acoustic instrument that you would normally hear on songs. It just sounds really cool, especially when it's complemented with the horns on the song. A friend did point out and say, hey, did you pull this as a reference to Matt and Kim, because Matt and Kim use a lot of horns? I love Matt and Kim, but no, I didn't even think about that. But I guess they entered my subconscious, and I just wrote that in there without even thinking about it. But yeah, love Matt and Kim. Shout out Matt and Kim. And then from there, we jump into an outro. And normally at this part of a song, some bands will just repeat the chorus and then just continue that route. But I chose not to do that. I chose to create this outro and just add in a different feel to it, really.
Maybe if you only knew the truth, I want to be with you.
So this outro was a lot of fun, and actually it was supposed to be different. Initially this outro, more or less the same, but the main part was gonna be my voice altered in this like robotic chopped voice, in which I would be repeating the chorus. So technically that would be the third chorus. I just wasn't able to really figure out how to make my voice robotic and chopped at the same time. It was kind of difficult. After weeks and weeks of trying to like mess with it, it just wasn't coming together. So I had to pivot and create a different outro. I think I like this one a little bit more, only because it gives it a different feel by me just extending the word you multiple times, adding reverb, adding octaves. It just gives it like a different feel towards the end. And while the line is "I want to be with you," that goes after the extended use, by making little tweaks here and there, you can take pieces of a chorus and kind of change it up a little bit and actually make something different. So that's what I did here. And then of course I had to add in a breakdown, because I'm an emo hardcore kid at heart. You know, I grew up with that stuff. Initially it was just gonna be like a regular groove throughout the whole time, but I said no. I want a halftime groove to pay homage, not only my past, but also to friends. I would probably really appreciate a nice halftime groove, just because it's halftime. If you know, you know. Added in the halftime groove, and actually, like, funny enough, it sounds good. It doesn't sound stupid. I think at first I was just like joking around and being like, oh, what if I added in a halftime groove just to be like ridiculous? But it actually works, especially coming back into regular time. It just makes the regular time stand out that much more. That's With You. Thanks for following along, and I will definitely be working on more stuff. I still have the Summer Nights EP, which is the 2-song EP I have out that I'll be going over. I'll be going over some covers that I've done. So continue to follow along, subscribe, and I'll be catching y'all shortly.